On our planet, there seems to be an infinite number of beautiful places one can visit, with an equal number of spectacular things to admire. It requires nothing more than a curiosity to observe what is all around you. The miracle of nature manifests in countless ways, from breathtaking vistas to the simple movements of a common heifer. The purpose of this program is to present you with the extraordinary diversity of our miraculous blue planet so that you can discover these things for yourself. In this episode of Miracles of Nature, we will travel to the Holy Land, Israel. We will start in the south and work our way to the north. Along the way, we will stop to admire several locations. Some of the stops will take us to incredible works of nature, while others are the setting of biblical tales. We will also present places that are associated with historical turning points. We begin today's episode in the picturesque desert oasis of Ein Gedi, where King David found his refuge. In the north of Israel, we will climb the Golan Heights, whose natural beauty, sadly, is overshadowed by the ongoing conflict. We will conclude our Holy Land pilgrimage on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, tracing the footsteps of Jesus. Welcome to southern Israel. For millennia, this hostile environment attracted prophets and escapees alike, from King David and John the Baptist to Jesus Christ. Even though the landscape of southern Israel comes across as hostile, it isn't quite as it seems. This is more than just a place of strong religious tradition, and more than the setting of many biblical tales. Over centuries, people sought spiritual enlightenment and also struggled to find a way to survive in such harsh conditions. One of the few spots that truly welcomes life has always been the Ein Gedi oasis. A verse from Solomon's Song of Songs helps to date the Ein Gedi oasis. My beloved is unto me as a cluster of camphor in the vineyards of Ein Gedi. Looking at these pictures, one could believe that the Garden of Eden was located here. The holy text, however, places an entirely different story into the setting of Ein Gedi. David apparently came here to hide from King Saul. David spotted the king walking in the surrounding caves. Though David could have easily surprised and killed him, he chose instead to cut off a sliver of King Saul's cape, which went unnoticed. It is difficult to consider the Bible as an historically accurate source. Archaeological findings indicate that people lived here as far back as 5,000 years. The Nubian ibex has inhabited the Ein Gedi since biblical times. These elegant, sure-footed, and incredibly agile animals roam the steep slopes with ease. The oasis is named after them. The name Ein Gedi is composed of two Hebrew words. Ein means spring, and Gedi means goat kid. Ein Gedi thus means spring kid. Wild animals and people live together in the oasis in surprising harmony. As a result, it is possible to examine even this unique creature, the Sudanese hyrax, up close. At first glance, it resembles a rodent, but in reality, this is an ungulate. It is genetically closest to the elephant. The monotonous quality of the desert can cause you to forget that tales from the Bible follow you with almost every step you take. Here, for instance, only a few kilometers from Ein Gedi, stood the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. With a little bit of imagination, you can see where that pillar of salt over there could be Lot's wife. Here, salt is a common mineral. This is partially due to the vicinity of the Dead Sea. Records of its unique properties date as far back as the 4th century BCE. Even Aristotle mentions its existence. Its name is Yam HaMelach in Hebrew, meaning the Sea of Salt. The concentration of salt is 10 times that of the ocean. As a result, the human body floats without a single stroke having to be made. It also contains a very high concentration of bromine, magnesium, and iodine. 1/3 of the water in the Dead Sea is made up of solid particles. Understandably, no creatures live in it. In the past, people considered it to be a demonic lake. It truly earned the name the Dead Sea. However, in the 20th century, people from around the world started coming here to take advantage of its unique healing properties. The Dead Sea is often considered to be the largest natural spa in the world. The surrounding air provides certain health benefits. Additionally, it is also the lowest point on our planet, lying precisely 417 meters below sea level. As such, the concentration of oxygen in the air is higher than normal. The minerals which continuously evaporate from the water play an important role as well. Bromine, used as an additive in sedatives, has a calming effect. Iodine enhances and improves thyroid gland functionality. Different treatments using Dead Sea mud are also very popular. The constant temperature of the mud gradually affects the body. It helps lessen the pain associated with rheumatism and arthritis. The high concentration of minerals in the mud simultaneously stimulates blood circulation and has the ability to cure certain skin diseases. The mud originates from floods that washed it from the surrounding mountains. It becomes enriched with minerals and plant extracts during erosion. This miracle mud has become an extremely valuable commodity for export and sought after by innumerable cosmetic companies. The crude mud collected on the beaches is purified and worked into a very fine consistency. It is then packaged and shipped to customers seeking relief for a variety of symptoms. The commercialization of substances from the Dead Sea has been ongoing for millennia. Bitumen, used in the mummification process, was collected on the shores of the Dead Sea and sold to ancient Egyptians. But for how long can the Dead Sea withstand such human abuse? This remains an important question. The River Jordan is the principal tributary of the Dead Sea. It is incapable of replacing its evaporating water. The speed at which its sea level is diminishing, about a meter per year, is an ongoing cause for concern. The tourist resort of Ein Gedi is waterless and requires water to be pumped in. The Israeli and Jordanian governments recently joined forces and established a collective project to supply seawater to the Jordan from the Aqaba Bay in the Red Sea. We have moved further south. We are now in the very heart of the Negev desert. The sun is just rising above the Maktesh Raman crater. In the book of Psalms it says, "How many are your works, Lord? In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures." Whether you look upon the Maktesh Raman crater as the creation of God or a miracle of nature, one thing is certain. It is a masterpiece. From a purely geological perspective, water is the architect of this crater. During floods, the water undermined the riverbeds. It continued to disturb the integrity of the solid rock. Gradually, it sank into the distinctly softer geological layers. Beautiful mesas remained, standing as witnesses to the ruthless work of time. Yet another stunning example of geological effects in the area is the so-called Carpenter's Workshop. This unique rock formation was shaped by geological pressure in such a way that it resembles processed pieces of wood, hence the name. Even though only 50,000 people live there, the Negev desert constitutes more than half of Israel's territory. At first sight, the Negev desert comes across as an entirely hostile environment unsuitable for life. On closer inspection, we realize that it can be considered a botanical garden. The local flora consists of 1,500 different plant species, all of which are well adapted to life in desert conditions. They survive on a minimum amount of water. The beautiful flowers of the Sitvanit are no exception. The name of this flower is derived from the Hebrew word for autumn. It blooms at the very end of summer, announcing the onset of a new season. The crown of thorns Jesus wore was weaved from its boughs. It was a welcome source of nutrition to the Nabateans passing through on their trading missions. The Nabateans were successful merchants. In the 3rd century BCE, they imported spices and other valuable items from India. Their caravans often numbered 1,000 camels, each hauling a load of 300 kilos. And so, in today's terms, a single caravan carried goods worth millions of dollars. What you see right here are the remains of the so-called incense route. It wound 2,400 kilometers from Oman to Yemen via Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the Negev desert, all the way to the port of Gaza. From there, the goods journeyed over the Mediterranean Sea into Europe. The Nabateans carefully guarded this route. Only they knew its secrets. At the time, a similar camp was established every 36 kilometers. The ancient merchants stayed overnight in them, gathering needed strength. Here, they treated themselves to well-deserved baths and feasts, and were entertained by tempting belly dancers. No wonder the Nabateans were known at the time as masters of the desert. Their route was precisely mapped and secured. Voluminous cisterns, hidden to passers-by, were erected in the valleys. A continuous water supply was ensured through an ingenious system of canals that brought rainwater from the surrounding hills. The Nabateans were eventually swept aside from the incense route. The Romans set upon them such high taxes that the trade route became largely unprofitable. The merchants ended their nomadic ways and commenced building cities. The city of Avdat was such a city. By the way, it was right here in the ruins of this 2,300-year-old city where the famous musical Jesus Christ Superstar was filmed. Back to the Nabateans. Because of their trade routes, they acquired knowledge about the cultivation of wine, ceramics, and life in the desert. This made their settlement in the desert easier, as they could produce their own merchandise. They built their homes in the very heart of the Negev desert, complete with wine and olive terraces. After 2,000 years, the ancient Nabatean gardens are still the daily toil of Israeli farmers. One of the founding fathers of the State of Israel and its first prime minister, David Ben-Gurion, envisioned Israelis carrying on this Nabatean tradition. Israeli farmers work them today, and so they not only carry on in the Nabatean traditions, they are a healthy source of commerce. It was Ben-Gurion who decided to go against nature. He saw the best hope for the State of Israel right here in the Negev desert. He proclaimed, if the state does not stop the desert will stop the state. As a result, he is also known as the father of the Negev. It is thanks to him that Israel is among the countries with the greatest experience in desert irrigation and the protection of fertile land. We will end our journey through the Holy Land at the grave site of David Ben-Gurion, located in the heart of his beloved Negev, above the Zin Valley in southern Israel. The surrounding hills are not as green as he might have wished, but the heritage of those who decided to take on the hostile nature and managed to make the Negev their home is an inspiring legacy to generations to come. We have reached the northern end of Israel. From the days of the 12 tribes of Israel, people hoped to settle on hills and highlands, believing that would bring them closer to the Lord. Even though the Golan Heights are part of the Holy Land, our interest in this area isn't spiritual in nature. The Golan Heights are of strategic military importance. Until recently, it was the center of Arab-Israeli conflict. The basalt plateau of the Golan Heights was raised by volcanic activity. It stretches from the Sea of Galilee all the way to the Lebanese border. In the east, the plateau reaches the capital of Syria, Damascus. It towers over the Israeli, Lebanese, and Syrian territory as a lookout post. It is therefore obvious that the country who controls the Golan Heights also has a military advantage over the surrounding states. At their highest, the Golan Heights rise 2,224 meters above sea level. In the winter months of January through March, up to 2 meters of snow can fall, turning this war zone into a ski resort. It is nowhere near the sophistication of alpine ski resorts, but Israelis aren't snobbish, since it's the only slope within a radius of 3,000 kilometers. The advantageous position of the Golan Heights has drawn people since pre-biblical times. The 700 dolmens, erected 4,000 years ago by a civilization of ancient nomads, speaks testimony to that fact. "2,000 years later, Jewish rebels made good use of the Golan Heights to fortify the town of Gamla against the Romans. The name Gamla comes from the Hebrew word meaning camel, because the hill we are currently standing on resembles a camel's hump. In the year 66 AD, the Romans attempted to conquer this city surrounded by impenetrable passes. They had to call upon 7 legions. Despite their large number of soldiers and their use of catapults, the rebels, barricaded within the city, withstood the onslaught of the Romans for days. In the end, however, the city fell when 3 Roman soldiers managed to undermine one of the city's towers. Its collapse allowed the fortress to be opened. According to the dramatic description of historian Joseph Flavio, the Romans savagely murdered 4,000 people, and the remaining 5,000 committed suicide rather than fall into Roman slavery. The ruins of the local synagogue, the oldest in the world, stands a silent witness of the terrible massacre. The strategic significance of the Golan Heights was once again important during the medieval Crusades. In the 12th century, the Syrians built the imposing fortress of Nimrod. Its main purpose was to guard the route from the Mediterranean Sea to Damascus against the 6th Crusade. The battles between Muslims and Christians over the dominion of the Holy Land only foreshadowed the cruel conflicts still to come in the 20th century. Shortly after the independent state of Israel was founded, the Syrians started using the strategic advantage of the Golan Heights to bombard the newly established Jewish state. The conflict climaxed when on the 10th of June 1967, Israel attacked the Syrian positions and occupied the Golan Heights. The so-called Six-Day War claimed thousands of lives, but didn't solve the situation. The escalating tension culminated in 1973 with a counterstrike of the coalition of the Arab states utilizing Soviet ammunition. The Arabs took the Jews by surprise, crushing them during an important Jewish holiday, Yom Kippur. The so-called Yom Kippur War lasted 12 days. 1.5 million soldiers, over 6,000 tanks, and 2,000 warplanes took part. In the end, the Golan Heights remained under Israeli administration. In 1981, Israel annexed the territory under an authority still in dispute to this day. As we travel the Golan Heights, we see the remains of war dispersed over a wide area. The situation is still far from resolved. Peace along the borders is barely maintained by United Nations troops, and Syria still has a claim to the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights come across as a hostile territory whose only significance is from a military perspective. But that's not their total value. The Golan Heights are also significant because of their abundant water supply. Thanks to their altitude, rainfall is plentiful in the Golan Heights. They are also a source of snowmelt, which makes its way into the local rivers every spring. Overall, 15% of all water in Israel originates right here in the Golan Heights. Israeli settlers managed to take advantage of the water supply here. They created an ingenious irrigation system, which in times of drought brings the much-needed water to virtually every tree. Besides fruit and vegetables, wine from grapes also thrives here. The local red wine is considered of top quality thanks to the basalt subsoil, high contents of minerals in the earth, and cool winters. The Golan Heights represent a true miracle of nature, a miracle that enables people to survive in the otherwise hostile and dry region of the Middle East. Besides being a life-giving region, it is also a source of conflict and war, where thousands have lost their lives. It could be said that the one who controls the Golan Heights also controls the main life-giving source of water in the whole region. We move from the peaks of the Golan Heights to their foothills. We are now in a place where the River Jordan empties into the Sea of Galilee. The River Jordan originates in the north of the Golan Heights. Its 251-kilometer-long river basin, besides being the main source of fresh water for Israel and Jordan, is also the most fertile area in the entire Middle East. It is no wonder that the River Jordan has also become a significant spiritual symbol. The crossing of the River Jordan signifies the return to the promised land for the Jews. For Christians, it is inherently linked to John the Baptist and the tradition of baptism. The entire area where the Jordan River empties into the Sea of Galilee has an important significance to the Christian faith. Jesus Christ settled not far from here in the village of Capernaum. He began to spread the Christian faith from a local synagogue whose remains stand till this day. Thousands of pilgrims from around the world follow the footsteps of Jesus to all the places where he made miracles happen and where he preached Christianity. For example, here on this rock, in a place called Tagba, he fed 5,000 famished people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And here, having been crucified, Jesus revealed himself to his apprentices for the 3rd time, instructing the Apostle Peter to take over and look after his followers. The fishermen of today sail out each morning on the Sea of Galilee in pursuit of fish. Sardines are the most common catch, but occasionally a larger fish will be caught. The best known is the tilapia. These were caught here as far back as the time of Jesus and so are stylishly referred to as St. Peter's fish. New species of fish, capable of cleaning the water, were introduced in recent years. This is because the Sea of Galilee, fed by the Jordan River, is a primary source of drinking water. Fishermen have fished these waters for generations. Their trade has become increasingly endangered in recent years. Due to the massive usage of its water, the Sea of Galilee is threatened with a similar fate as the Dead Sea. Its level has dropped by 3 meters in the last year alone, and the situation is now critical. Today's hard labor comes to an end. The fishermen are returning to the shore. May they come back tomorrow and in the upcoming years with a bountiful catch. Today's episode of Miracles of Nature has also come to its end. We traversed the Holy Land from south to north. En route, we visited places of incredible beauty entwined with rich spiritual essence. Some of these places have a cruel past. Let's pray then that long-sought peace finally comes to this remarkable land. On our planet, there seems to be an infinite number of beautiful places one can visit, with an equal number of spectacular things to admire. It requires nothing more than a curiosity to observe what is all around you. The miracle of nature manifests in countless ways, from breathtaking vistas to the simple movements of a common heifer. The purpose of this program is to present you with the extraordinary diversity of our miraculous blue planet so that you can discover these things for yourself. Many islands lie in the sea between Great Britain and Scandinavia. All of these islands would have remained snow-covered and life would not have been sustainable were it not for the Gulf Stream. The warm waters flowing through the Atlantic Ocean all the way to South America account for the mild island climate, rich nature, and history that reaches back thousands of years. Such are the three islands we are about to visit in today's Miracles of Nature: Vesteralen, the Fair Isle, and the Orkneys. 3 islands, 3 unique places, 3 stops. Firstly, we will introduce the miracle by the name Vesteralen. Vesteralen lies to the south of the famous Lofoten Islands and is comprised of many small islands. The largest of which, Pinoya, at 2,250 square kilometers, is Norway's second largest island. Population on the islands is very sparse, ensuring that the surrounding nature is unspoiled by man, and Vesteralen remains an all-in-one reservation of Nordic nature. The highest mountain, Moiselen, despite its mere 1,262 meters, stands proud and tall above a fishing village and can be seen from the seaside. From its peak, one can admire the crystal-clear lakes, lush pastures, and the rugged coast where many different kinds of birds nest. The winter is relatively mild on Vesteralen. Come spring and summertime, the meadows become adorned with colorful flowers. Because Vesteralen lies past the Arctic Circle, visitors can marvel at the magic of the polar day in the summer when the sun never sets below the horizon. The first explorers who witnessed polar days were the Sami people. Thousands of years ago, the Sami people were hunters. It's only recently that they turned to agriculture. The rearing of reindeer is not as popular on the islands nowadays as it was in the past. Nevertheless, 50,000 of these ruminant animals live in Norway, which is more than half of today's world reindeer population. The herds are supplemented through official game captured in the mountains of Vesteralen. Reindeer are utilized in many ways and are a sort of Nordic cow. They provide not only meat, but also milk. Unlike the more sensitive cattle, they are a lot hardier toward the harsh Nordic conditions. As such, their hide is valuable material for warm clothing. At first glance, it may seem as if we were transported to a forgotten Caribbean island with sandy beaches and a turquoise blue sea. On the contrary, we are still in Vesteralen, experiencing the fairer aspect of the otherwise rough Nordic landscape. The unspoiled coastline attracts many migratory as well as resident birds that nest in the high cliffs above the sea. The sea eagle in particular reaches giant dimensions with its wingspan of 2.5 meters, making it Europe's largest bird of prey. The sea eagle shares the blue sky with the considerably smaller puffins, who live in colonies on the shore. Puffins are deceiving for their size. In reality, they are the masters of flight, with an ability to beat their wings 400 times per minute to reach a speed of 90 kilometers per hour. Vesteralen is a true paradise for birdwatchers. All one needs to do is stand still and take in the fulmars, puffins, gannets, or attempt to spot the 4 different kinds of skua. Here, human interference with nature is almost non-existent. On the few occasions that human interference is necessary, it is done in a way that is in perfect harmony with nature. Nature rewards the human efforts by stunning manifestations of its grandiosity. A good example are the dramatic waterfalls fed by water from melting snow and surface lakes. Some of the waterfalls are hundreds of meters high, and during spring thawing can become very wide. Water in particular is a fitting symbol. Similar to the waterfalls, the nature is pristine, wild, and self-assured that it will remain beautiful and unspoiled, a true masterpiece. The trademark of Vesteralen is the contrast of roughness and serenity. On the one hand, you may wander along hundreds of kilometers of trekking paths through a landscape dominated by calm lakes and lush meadows. On the other hand, one can watch in awe as the water rushes madly over jutting rocks, or let oneself be stunned by the enchanting beauty of Nordic fjords. Vesteralen, just like Norway as a whole, would not be the same without fjords, which are a legacy of times long gone. They were created during the Ice Age when glaciers retreated into the sea. An immense mass of ice flowed through river valleys and tore the landscape, leaving behind these immense scars. The sun sets above Vesteralen, letting us know that it's time to move on a few hundred kilometers to Great Britain's most isolated island, the Fair Isle. The Fair Isle lies 38 kilometers from the Shetland Islands and is the furthest inhabited territory of the British Isles. It would seem that its surface area of 768 hectares does not make it a place where people would willingly settle. Even so, the island was first inhabited in the New Stone Age and has remained populated ever since. The Gulf Stream ensures that winter temperatures don't fall below 5 degrees Celsius and that the summertime average is a pleasant 20 degrees. Today, there are 80 regular inhabitants on the island who work mostly in agriculture. Old Vikings used to call it the Sheep Island. The current name, Fair Isle, is derived from the fact that it's an exceptionally quiet and peaceful island and a significant place to Scottish historians and ecologists. As such, it is under the protection of the National Trust of Scotland, a charity organization which leases land to the inhabitants and thus safeguards the environment. Anyone who is granted a permit to stay must deal with the isolation and with the unbridled sea all around, assaulting the coastline day and night. Those who stay are generously rewarded by nature. A living spectacle unfolds both in the sky and in the many bays. The surrounding waters are among the richest in Europe in terms of the different kinds of animals living here. There are 21 different types of sea mammals, of which 5 are seals, including the rare Atlantic gray seal. Fair Isle is a haven for seal families. The pristine sea all around provides an abundance of food and security. The only things the seals must watch out for are the breakers and the killer whales. The seals mask their slyness with cuteness, but that won't help when a killer whale attacks. Their agility is what matters. Their incredible maneuvers can save them from an attack by these feared predators. Marine biologists are convinced that seals thrive here as they count tens of newborns every year. The Southern Lighthouse was the last electrified lighthouse in Scotland in 1998. This implies that while civilization is a mere few hours' flight away, its noise reaches Fair Isle with a considerable delay. Sheep farming has been, and still is, the most important trade for most of the islanders. Sheep have forever been a means to survive and a source of income. Their wool is considered to be of the finest quality, and knitting sweaters with the typical local pattern is a matter of tradition. It is almost as well known as local mutton. The mystery of superb wool and delicious mutton from Fair Isle is easily solved. The sheep fare extremely well here, and so the farmers can experiment with various breeds. A cross of the Shetland, Texel, and Cheviot sheep, for example, feels right at home here. The farmers also often keep South African rams to give the sheep that special spark, they say. At one time, there were so many sheep on Fair Isle that pastures became insufficient. In the middle of the 20th century, the farmers had to use every single available grassy patch. Each summer, they used to transport herds of sheep to the inaccessible sheep rock using unsteady boats and ropes. It was well worth it. On Fair Isle, fauna is manifested in the sea, on land, and in the air. Due to its suitable position, the island becomes a resting station for thousands of migratory birds each year. As such, Fair Isle is the perfect bird watcher's site. The popularity of bird watching is the direct result of the work of George Waterson, who bought the island in 1948 for £3,500 sterling and established a bird observatory here. He thus combined the scientifically beneficial observation of the behavior of migratory birds with securing the future of the islanders. The island was decimated by the Second World War, and had it not been for Waterson's station, the Fair Isle may have long been forgotten. Seagulls and cormorants are among Fair Isle's permanent residents. In the winter, there are also widgeons, teals, goldeneyes, woodcocks, and glaucous gulls. Watching their antics from the height of the cliffs is so vivid that one almost perceives each movement of the wings and every gust of wind. The place becomes a true birdwatcher's paradise with the onset of the main migratory season in the summertime, when gigantic flocks of puffins and other birds arrive. George Waterson did something unprecedented for the island, and his followers strive to fulfill his legacy. The employees of the Ornithological Observatory put up nets on carefully selected spots for capturing and monitoring of birds. Each day, Derek Shaw checks all the nets and carefully rings the captured birds. Through his work, he not only fills in the blanks with scientific facts about the routes of the migratory birds, but also monitors the numbers of the fair Isle wren that are endemic here. Derek has a steady job, but he's also in charge of the maintenance of the ornithological station. Its construction indicates just how important the birds of Fair Isle are to the rest of the world. The structure was co-financed by Great Britain, the European Union, and people of all European countries who helped through different collections. Europeans are the most common visitors that Derek guides through the island each summer. The station is not complete yet. Once the building will be finalized, it will become a unique hotel from which to observe the world of birds. Let us leave Derek to successfully complete the building and the birds to continue singing while we take a look at the Orkneys. The 70 islands belonging to the Orkney archipelago near Great Britain are split into 3 groups: the mainland and the northern and southern islands. The Orkneys are under British administration now, but it hasn't always been so. History has been unfolding here for the past 4,000 years, ever since the first settlers arrived. The proof lies in the Neolithic monument called Skara Brae. The Stone Age village is one of the best preserved settlements of its kind in Europe. The placement of the houses and fragments of their fittings are still visible. The climate is very much affected by the Gulf Stream. Archaeological findings indicate that the Orkneys became popular thousands of years ago, particularly due to their mild climate and excellent seafood. Unlike the rest of Europe, the islands were not covered by snow and ice, and the sea provided the necessary nourishment. The Orkneys are more or less entwined with ancient history. Beside the official sites administered by the government, it is also possible to visit other private Neolithic tombs and excavation sites that the landowners often find accidentally while digging a well. The peaceful seaside meadows are known for their colorful flowers, such as sea asters, sea squills, and the Scottish primrose, which are endemic to the Orkneys. The Orkneys witnessed a turbulent past not only in ancient history. The Royal British Navy had a strategically important base in Scapa Flow Bay. Winston Churchill realized the vulnerability of the port and had concrete embankment built as protection against submarine attacks. The feat was completed by 1,000 Italian war prisoners. Only one German submarine ever made it into Scapa Flow. The embankment today serves as an ideal breakwater or bank for roads. Vikings also used the 300 square kilometers of Scapa Flow as a port. The average depth of just 30 meters makes it a calm bay ideal as a source of seafood. The tranquil waters warmed by the Gulf Stream are an ideal habitat for many creatures. The favorite local delicacy is the brown crab. The adult brown crab may reach 25 centimeters in diameter and weigh up to 3 kilos. Each winter, the female crab lays between 250,000 to 3 million eggs. The males grow at a rate of 1 centimeter per year in the first 8 years of their life. The growth then slows down to some 2 millimeters per year. The females grow at half that rate. Over half the world's annual catch of the brown crab, which amounts to about 50,000 tons per year, is caught right here in Scapa Flow. People are not the only ones that indulge in the succulent crab delicacy. The seal population is just as fond of it. Man is an inventive creature who always manages to make the best of any natural wealth. A good example is Britain's northernmost whiskey distillery. The typically strong, smoky taste of the local single malt is acquired by processing wheat, which is heated up on grates fueled by turf. The wheat is left to ferment and then is distilled twice. Afterwards, it's left to mature for a minimum of 12 years in oak casks that were once used for sherry. The distillate thus acquires its special taste and color. The extensive plains of the Orkney Islands are ideal for sheep farming, just like all of the other northern islands washed by the Gulf Stream. The sheep here have an unusual dark shade of wool and a very distinctive taste to their meat. This is because they feed on grass and also on sea kelp washed up on the shore during low tide. The sea kelp forms a part of their staple diet and accounts for the special shade of wool and also for the rather unusual taste of the meat. Don't let yourself be misled. Although they do look like goats, they really are sheep. The close-knit contact with nature and the abundance of seals in the surrounding waters give rise to legends of the seal people. In local mythology, the seals can turn into beautiful people and can be helpful to humans. The polluted waters and the sometimes forgotten fishing nets can hurt the seals, and so the people of the Orkneys actively look after their well-being in an attempt to preserve them for generations to come. Just like the Fair Isle, the Orkneys also lie in the way of the bird's migration route. Visitors benefit from a perfectly balanced experience of natural wealth and a long and rich history. The islands haven't changed much since times long past, and so offer the same fauna and flora that was admired by the ancient Orkney inhabitants, the Vikings, as well as the officers of the Royal Navy. The sun sets above the islands, above the Orkneys, Vesteralen, as well as the Fair Isle. All of these locations introduced in today's episode prove that there is no shortage of fascinating nature and dramatic scenery in the northern latitudes. The murky sea may at times assault the high cliffs, and the wind blows madly over the open plains, but the islands remain spared from the frosty fingers of the Arctic climate, and so people, as well as animals, thrive here. This is a miracle of nature that we strive to bring closer to you in this program. Miracles are often associated with fairy tales, but we are on a quest to prove that anyone can experience miracles in real life. Our journey to the miraculous nooks of our planet comes to an end for now. On the next exploration of our compelling and bountiful planet Earth, we shall wander into Africa, particularly to Zimbabwe, where in Matabeleland we'll encounter the beauty of typically African animals. On the Zambezi River, at the borderline with Zambia, there are breathtaking waterfalls in store for us. That's all right here on Miracles of Nature. We hope you'll join us.